Yo, 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 welcome back to another episode of Brothers in Arms. I am your host, comedian Edgar Rivera, and I'm joined today by my brothers, Dr. Dan Radner, comedian Eric Nieves, and our very special guest, Rob Davon-Butler. What's up, brothers?
What's
Good to see you, man.
Nice. We finally
What's
got
good,
everybody.
everybody. Rob, it's good to meet you, man. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Nice. We had a little experience with Rob right before the show, and he showed us his whole house as he was trying to set up for this Zoom. And finally, he got a nice setup, man. I'm happy you're here with us today. Before we get started, I want to ask Eric. Eric, how you doing, brother? How was your week?
I'm good, man. I got a haircut. I got a little upset though because I got a haircut. Always exciting, But the thing is, I'm realizing the barber's taking longer on my ears than my head. You know what I mean? So I've crossed that line where I've been like, let me get a 1 on the sides and a 2 on my ears. So that's kind of depressing. But beyond that, I'm good, man. How you doing, Edgar?
No idea. I can't relate with that. I can't. I started cutting my own hair years ago, man. But Dr. Dan, what about you, Doc?
Oh, I'm always happy to be here, but today's particularly fun. We don't usually get like a half an hour before the show to start riffing on things.
Mm-hmm.
And
nice.
I get around comedians, I start wanting to be one. So I did my best. You guys will have to let me know how I did. But
nice.
It's great to have you here, Rob. We're glad to have you on.
Yes, man. For everybody listening and viewing, Rob is a very good friend of mine, man. I like to think you're one of my best friends. You slowly become one of my best friends. Me and Rob do a walk every Saturday. We call it Brotherhood Saturdays, where we meet and different hike trails, and we hit these trails and we talk. And I'm very happy that you're here with us today, Rob. I mean, just tell the viewers and listeners a little about yourself real quick before we get into this, so we could get to know you a little bit better.
No doubt. So my name, my given name is Rob Davon, long A, Rob Davon-Butler. I've been married for 18 years. My wife and I, Courtney, got married at 20 and 21 respectively. I'm the elder of the crew. We have 4 children together: Alexis, Amani, and Aaron, and Aubrey. They are 22, 19, 16, and 9 respectively. So when Edgar tapped me during one of our walks to jump on this call, I've been watching you guys' podcast. Love the fact that you guys are getting naked. I think right now is a season of vulnerability for men. And you guys are kicking down the door of us being hard and rigid and tough, big, tough, broken ball of masculinity. And so I'm excited to be on this show and looking forward to the dialogue. So that's who I am, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania originally. I spent 5 years in the NFL, been in corporate America ever since, climbing the ladder, living in different cities. It's been a good ride so far.
Nice, man. Well, welcome, bro. Welcome to the show. I'm glad that you watch the show, that you support it, and that you believe in the cause and why we're here today. So with that being said, since there's 4 of us again, fellas, let's just go right into it. So Dr. Dan, you wanna bring in this great segment that we like to call...
Absolutely. And since Rob's seen this, he already knows the drill. But the next segment is called Old News, maybe from yesterday. I always make everybody's head tilt.
Got to do the head tilt. So,
there you go.
So today we're talking about fatherhood. Okay, fatherhood's a big topic. You know what I mean? This is a show about men. Men are fathers. So I want to do the research and see what's the impact when the father is absent. You know, what if the father's not there? Does it really have an impact on the kids? What does it really do to the children? So first of all, this is as of 2020, 1 in 4 kids in the entire country, 1 out of 4, are living without their biological stepfather or an adoptive father. That means there's no male in the home. 1 in 4. I found that number just striking. And some of the numbers that you see how it impacts children as they grow up, they're at 4 times greater risk of poverty. Girls are 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teen. They're more likely to face abuse, neglect. They're more likely to have behavioral problems, drug abuse. They're 2 times likely to suffer from obesity. They're 2 times likely to go to prison, and they're twice as likely to drop out of high school. And this is just the absence of a father in the home. And I just thought, I know it's easy to say that, mothers have the hardest job, and they do. I'm not taking anything away from motherhood. But sometimes I don't think we talk enough about how important the father is. It's it's not just to be the quiet man and make the big decisions, but it's really how the decisions and the choices they make that shape their kids' lives. So I think we should talk about fatherhood and what it means to men now, what it meant back then, and what it's going to mean moving forward. What kind of children are the fathers of today raising? And you could see that they're needed. But as you could see, one out of four children is missing their father.
That's an unbelievable stat. I have to say I'm not surprised, because in the work that I do, I've been around all this long enough to know. But I do think it is really important to note that, and look, it's not the case that if those people had a father, none of them would end up, in these situations. Of course not. It's it's not as simple as you just need the father to be there. But and look, if we did statistics of what it would be like for people who didn't have a mother, it might even be worse. I have no idea, but it does show that fathers are genuinely, they can be incredibly important, and that's just in their being there, let alone like what's it like being a father. And Rob, we'll talk with you about your experience of fatherhood and how you've approached it, because we all have to do it the way that we think is best. And I don't know about you guys, but a lot of the way that I parent is either from taking the things that I loved and thought were good, or the things that I thought really were not good. I was like, hell no, I'm not. I'm doing exactly the opposite of that, rigidly. So I do think, it's really important to just talk about, just starting off where Eric said, just the mere presence of the father can make a big difference. Edgar, what do you think about those numbers? Because that's,
I think it's crazy, man. But I don't want to take so much time talking, because knowing Rob personally, this is this is you right here. So I'm gonna let you talk about it because you live this, right? So go ahead, Rob. Talk about this.
To Eric's point, I like to start with the impact on me. Looking in the past, my dad left when I was actually 2 years old. When I say left, he and my mom were never married, but he left the home at the age of 2. Had a newborn little brother, Dorian. So I grew up without. I am part of the statistics as an individual who grew up without a male in the home. Now, I will say this, going back to the beginning, some of the things that I missed were that male presence, that consistent male presence, because he was always there. He'd come get us every other weekend, but that accountability that comes from a male presence, that learning how to be a follower and yield or submit myself to a dominant masculine energy in the household was not missing. Even to this day, as a 40-year-old man, I struggle with authority. I don't like it. I like autonomy. I don't like anybody telling me what to do. But there certainly was that impact of, people. I didn't know how to tie a tie. I was in college traveling, playing for Pitt. Didn't even know how to tie a tie. Don't know how to fish. These things. Don't know how to pitch a tent. These things that you don't think are that important become really important when you become an adult. Now, I will say this. To the point about the statistics, I think that the individual will supersedes even the sociological environment in which you grow up, right? Because I didn't have a dad. I still graduated from college. I still got a master's degree. I still achieved my childhood dreams. I still got up out of the projects. And so I will say this to anybody listening, whether you are someone who came from a household that didn't have a male in it, or you are a young person, or a person who grew up and was a dad, you are parenting outside of the household. Number one, your impact can still be felt. Number two, it is the individual will of the kid that I believe that supersedes all other dynamics. And so I think it's sad. The numbers are unfortunate. The statistics are unfortunate, but I don't think it's a death sentence.
Mm-hmm. I think that's incredibly well said. And I want to add to that it really is the case. Speaking as a therapist, Rob, the people who get through the trauma, they actually tend to be even stronger. I'm not recommending trauma. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but the people who do get through it tend to come out stronger. By the way, I totally could identify with that tie thing. I learned to tie a tie. My father died when I was 6 weeks old, and then my father now stepped in, and he did ultimately adopt us. But I had a story of an evolving father. And it led to things like my best friend when I was 12 teaching me to tie a tie. I didn't learn it from a dad.
Right.
And that does stick with you. When you said that, I was like, oh man, I got to say something about that. That's incredible. But I agree with you. It's not a death sentence. In fact, the individual definitely supersedes everything, and you can be even stronger. In fact, I wonder, Eric, maybe at some point you can look into statistics of the people who are the most successful and how many of them had trauma of some kind, because I bet you it is gigantic.
I bet, yeah.
That'd be an interesting thing to look at. I just want to make sure that the stats said likely, wasn't a guarantee, but that the odds increased that these things would happen in the absence of a father. Obviously, there are no absolutes, and they do make a point of writing that it's not just enough to be there; it's about being involved and caring. And I think I should because they want fathers need to be involved, but it has to be quality involvement. It can't just be you pick the kid up and you throw some money in their pocket and then you don't even see them the whole weekend when you hang out with them. Mm. I don't think that kind of involvement, I mean, it's good that they're around, but I don't think that involvement's going to have as much of an impact. If you know what I mean?
No, listen, if you have a father who is negatively involved, that's probably worse than an absent father, honestly.
Mm-hmm. That is.
Rob, what's your take on that in terms of how you've approached parenting yourself to be that positive influence? Since I'm assuming you're not going to come on in here and be like, I'm a terrible father. And I know.
Certified deadbeat, Dr. Dan.
Yeah, the truth. No, I'm just kidding.
Now that we're laughing, what is a tie? Nah, I'm messing.
I think it's a great segue to something that I wanted to make sure I got a chance to speak to, because I think it was you, Dr. Dan, who alluded to it earlier about giving your kids everything that you didn't have. So to that point, I made a decision really early that if I had children, I was going to be custodial. I'm talking about 18, 19 years old. I made that decision. So when I got my then girlfriend, Courtney, now wife, pregnant with our oldest that we have together, I knew that this was my life partner. Like, there was no non-custodial ideology in my mind. I always see myself being in the home. Now, take it a step further. I said to myself, I'm going to give my kids everything that I didn't have and more. I'm going to take the lessons that my dad modeled for me that were good and take them to the next level, be better than him. I'm going to take all the lessons and examples that my dad modeled for me that weren't so good and not do that crap with my kids. Now, the impact in my particular case is that, gosh, we're gonna get in there. We're just gonna get naked.
Let's get deep.
Let's just get okay. I shared this with that girl on one of our hikes. I think I overdid it, guys. I think I overdid giving them all of which I didn't have. And what that looked like in reality is that I as a provider and a supporter and a cheerleader and a coach, I gave them everything they needed, everything they wanted, and even the crap that they didn't ask for. As a result of that, I can say, admittedly, with two children who have graduated and two still in one in high school, one in grade school, that I didn't create the space for a merit system, or because life is a merit game. And so when you get without putting out, you think that that's the way the world works. And I can see it in my older two, that they think that shit just happens, right? Like, because they said so. I want a car. Where's my car? It's like, but wait, what? You think that you should have a car because you're 16 or 18 or, oh, where's my apartment? And it's like, first I was mad at them. Full disclosure, I'm like, who raised you? Oh, it was me. Oh, so I go to my wife. I'm like, babe, let's just fall on our swords here. I think we're doing too much. Now we have a 22-year-old and a 19-year-old who aren't exactly prepared to go out in the real world tomorrow and fend for themselves. Ultimately, as a parent, I believe that our jobs are to do all the things that I mentioned, but we also have to be mindful that the ultimate goal is to prepare them for life, like in the real world, in reality, to be able to, like, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, it's all bad. Mm-hmm. And so I'm spending the rest of my time that I have, because all of them are under our roof. So the older two, we're spending time, investing time, trying to close the gap on the things that we didn't give them in their youth. And it's a little bit more difficult because they're a little stuck in their ways and used to accustomed to certain things. They're going like, Dad, you tripping? No, I'm not tripping. I showed you something that wasn't a reflection or a mirror of what the real world was, and now you're getting kicked in the teeth. Now I got to teach you the right way or give you the full picture. Yeah. That's where we are, like right now.
You know, it's crazy that during our hikes we talk about like our kids the most. I think and it's crazy, and I think when we decided to talk about this topic, I wanted to bring Rob in because I know that you're going through it, and and my question is, as parents, as you know, we want to give our kids the best. You don't want your kid to go through what you went through as a kid, and you want to give them the best. But how good is that? Now, just hearing what you just said, and it's true, because I look at these kids nowadays, and I was raised in a Latino household where my mother and my father painted an apartment on summer vacations, and I had to sit on the floor in the middle of an empty apartment with my brother and sister and play there and be mad at the world because my mom and dad did this to us. Now older, I'm like, damn, I appreciate what they did because that's what they had to do to put food on the table. So I think now at my age, I appreciate it even more. When we're kids, we don't see it that much. But how bad is this, or how good is this that you give your kid everything and you're not showing them the true appreciation of things? I think we're spoiling kids, and then the minute you say no on one thing, right away they'll flip on you in a heartbeat.
It's a really interesting point. If you guys don't mind, I want to jump in and just give you my take on that as a therapist and how I would think about it. So first of all, I think Rob's hitting on the key point, which is you do want the balance. And I want to encourage you, Rob, you can always rebalance, especially when you're a person like you who's willing to be honest with yourself, and then you can just be honest with them. You can rebalance. It's also easier to rebalance when you've built a good relationship with your kids. So no matter how much you feel like you maybe gave too much to them, I really want to encourage you. You erred on the right side, honestly. I'm not saying not to teach kids lessons or prepare them for the real world, but you filled them with love, and that's going to allow them to adapt. But I do agree with you. Now is a great time to adapt. I do this with my kids all the time. I pour love into them, and then I see them hitting up against something, and I step in and I say, okay, now wait a minute. Think about what's going on. Think about what's happening for that other person. So you're right on it. I think you're doing the right thing. The love you poured into them is going to pay off because they'll have a trusting relationship with you.
Right.
But that's when we strike the balance, is when we step in and say, okay, I've given you lots of love. Now take a look at this. And I can relate too. I was a kid who had tons of adversity, and I also got too much. It was totally out of balance in either direction. I went to college. I was so embarrassed about this, but I'll share it on the show. I went to college. I didn't know how to do my laundry. I didn't know how to do my laundry. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Like, I had somebody show me. It's a machine. It's not that hard. But it was embarrassing. And I remember looking back and be like, what the hell were my parents doing?
Yeah.
They did not prepare me for this. So parents are going to mess up in one direction or another. To me, it's about the adaptation. How do you shift? And you have the key ingredient to shifting, which is you are observing it. You're thinking about it. So I want to give you a lot of credit for the love you've given them, but also the honesty you're showing to yourself and your commitment to continuing to update what you're giving them. It's pretty awesome.
Well said. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate that, Dr. Dan, because I'm my biggest critic. Part of my self-image is continuous improvement. And so that leaves me in a space of beating myself up sometimes. But luckily I have a partner in my wife where we can have open and honest conversations. And to your other point, I have a great relationship with my kids. So we talk about everything. So it's not too late to course correct and bring about that balance. But go ahead, E, you just want to say something?
Eric. I just want to just kind of make a point, because I'm not a parent, first of all. So I can't give parenting advice or fatherly advice. But what I can observe is that what I see when people come up lean and hungry, not much. They don't want the kids. They always say, I want to give the kids everything I didn't have. And I think they're misunderstanding it. And it's not everything that you couldn't afford. It's the things that you couldn't have. Like not being hungry is something you want the next generation. You know what I mean? It's not about the level of what you can afford. It's to avoid the real hard stuff. Because I came up broke, but I had a good childhood. You know, there were some days where we had to wait till the next day to eat because the first of the month was the next day. But that's nothing compared to what a lot of people go through in the world. And if so I think parents feel like they almost overdo it to kind of like, instead of just, hey, that you got a steady roof without an eviction notice, you got meals that are hot, you got clothes with no holes, you got more than 2 jeans and 2 shirts that you got to turn into 5 outfits every school year, and that's enough. It's when you go past the threshold, that's when I think it can turn on you. And I think that's kind of maybe what happened in your case, Rob. I'm just assuming because I'm just looking on the outside looking in. But it looks like, you just wanted to give your kids a world that you didn't have, and you could have done it by spending half.
Yeah, I would say for all our listeners, for me, it wasn't. Well, my kids is not material possessions, so they don't walk around in Jordans, and I walked around in Voigts and Spaldings. So they're not spoiled that way. They're spoiled in terms of access. They're spoiled in terms of the things that you mentioned, which are the things that I didn't have, like a hot meal, right? A roof over your head, all those kinds of things. They're spoiled in terms of resources and support around the things that they want to do. Anything that they want to do, we literally get behind them full bore, connect them with the right people, take the classes, pay for the classes, training, supplements, whatever it is. Both of my boys play football and my daughter's a dancer. So it's really spoiled in that way, I would say, without there being some contingencies or some conditions like grades or chores being done, right? Services being rendered at home in exchange for the thing that they wanted. So it's more of that than the material possession itself. But I do want to just circle back on another thing, because I said, for me, one of the greatest roles or jobs or responsibilities as a parent is to prepare your child to do life, but it's also to help mold and shape their self-image, right? So even though I didn't have a dad in the house, my mom worked 2-3 shifts at McDonald's. I was a latchkey kid. I'm 7 years old. Yeah, here's the key, shoestring around the neck, with the key on it. Get your brother off the bus. Make sure he eats. Make sure he does his homework. Make sure he doesn't get beat up, outside. And that kind of thing shaped and molded a leader. It molded somebody who was resilient and perseverant. And that shows up as a strength today, even though my circumstances were less than ideal. I think my mom also instilled in me a belief. Like, she always told me I can do anything. I believed her, right? Even though my dad didn't validate that, my mom put that in me, and I believed her. And even to this day, I think I can do all things. So the second thing I think is, yes, to prepare to tackle life. But the third thing is to pick them up when they fall. So as a parent, you got to expect that your kids are going to make mistakes. I was so hard on them because I knew how far a mistake can set you back. They're doing teenage kids stuff, and I would come down on them like the world was ending, because I was projecting a future that they couldn't rebound from, versus dealing with the fact that they're just kids. They're teenagers. They're gonna do stuff like have sex. They're gonna do stuff like sneak boys in the house and girls in the house like that. They're gonna sample drugs. Like these kinds of things are gonna happen, and you just have to be there to help walk them through and navigate them through these facts of life, these life happenings.
Yeah,
I have a question real quick. I'm just curious, and I ask you this of you, Dan, and you, Edgar. I actually asked the whole panel because I'm just curious, because I'm not a father, so I really learn about what parenting and fatherhood by listening to you guys, and I'm getting a head full of information. But I'm just curious, do you think it would have been easier to raise the kids if you didn't have the financial means to kind of support every goal? Do you think it would have been easier to teach the lessons of life if you didn't have the ability to do these things for them and to open doors for them? I'm just curious, like what's your opinion on that? And I'll say the whole panel.
You want to take a stab at it first, Dr. Dan?
Yeah. Well, listen, remember, sometimes I'm answering from a place of my psychological expertise. Sometimes I'm answering from my own personal belief. Mm-hmm. And I try to bring them together to, provide the best information. But I would say this. I understand the question. I think that there are plenty of times where having too much money becomes a big problem. They say more money, more problems. Mm-hmm. It's not, I know I'm supposed to say it mo money, but listen, I'm white. I shouldn't do that. It's cultural, cultural appropriation.
More money, more problems.
More money, more problems. Okay, so listen.
Mold. Google that. Go ahead.
But I think the point that Rob made about the individual being the thing that trumps everything is really the key here. I've seen families that are really wealthy where they take the time to be like, now wait, do you see what's happening here? Did you see that family? To me, it's more about, are you talking to your kids? Much more than the resources. I think what's happening here in society in general, and even as we discuss this, is that we have all kinds of misunderstandings about causality. What's causing the problem? Money in a family, to me, is not inherently a problem. However, it tends to lead to people feeling more relaxed, less likely to work hard at the discussions. And to me, it's all about whether you're talking. That's the key. Yeah.
Interesting.
What do you guys think? I shut it down. Everybody was like,
no,
it was like a mic drop.
Boom. He's like, yo. I think definitely it could be a double-sided blade, It could definitely be a double-sided blade where I think a household where it doesn't make that much money, I think these kids they would appreciate things more. I think sometimes we try to help and we try to give more than we can, like you said, Eric, and then it could backfire because then the day you don't do it, it's then now you're bad, or it comes easily. I think we need to teach these kids how to work, how to appreciate, how to say thank you for everything. I look at kids nowadays and I see how good they got it, and I'm like, man, Jesus, I get mad. I become a hater. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I see kids and I'm like, I look at crazy, you can't do nothing to them. So when we talk about this, my one question I want to ask the panel is, do you think it was harder being a father back then or now? You get the question? You think it
Absolutely. I'm going to tie a bow on Eric's question because I think I had the chance to think about it because Dr. Dan went, now you went, so I had the chance to try to trump Dr. Dan's response with something more enlightened than the damn doctor, right?
Get him.
So I think the way I would frame it up, Eric's first question is this. When you are poor or when you don't have the financial means, life lessons are baked into the life experience. Adversity is baked into the cake, So my parents didn't instill these values in me. It came as a result of the circumstances in which I was raised in, right? As a person who, makes more than 97% of Americans, 98%, excuse me, doing well. I would say that you have to be more mindful. So if you are a household that is generating in excess of $250,000, you have to be more mindful of these life lessons and be intentional about how you make sure they get instilled into the children, because circumstantially,
it's not happening naturally.
It's not happening naturally. So that's how I would answer your question, Eric. To answer your question, Edgar, about differences in parenting us versus parenting our kids, 1,000%. And I would say the core driver to that is social media. And it's because now the world is opened up to my kids. It's one thing for my 9-year-old to say, my fellow fourth graders have a cell phone, daddy, and I don't. It's like, so what? I don't care about your fourth grade. Your classmates aren't my priority. But when she goes on YouTube and TikTok, and there's clearly kids out there that got whole Instagram pages and TikTok pages at 9, and she's like, everybody else in the world is doing this. It's not just my class, daddy. Now it's the world. What's wrong with you and mommy? Or what's wrong with me? So it's a big difference. You want to add to that, Doc?
Yeah, well, one thing that I will add to it in specific, in terms of what social media has done and just technology, I think that it has made it more challenging for people to be individuals.
Yeah.
There's so much groupthink. There's so much like, oh, everybody does it this way. And this gets back to how I talk with my kids. As long as I'm having a real dialogue with them, like if they ask me questions like that, I will tell. This is one thing I did different than my parents. My parents would, like, sometimes they think they would have to protect me from something. I never want to protect somebody from the truth. I don't want to give them the truth in some kind of awful way that really is extra upsetting. But I'll just tell them things like, look, because they're not on social media. My kids, they're 12 and 8. They're not on social media. I hope they stay off social media for their whole lives. And they might say, oh, but Daddy, it's not fair. They're doing this. And I will say to them, listen, you get to decide for yourself what is important. We cannot take what the world does and assume that's the way it should be done. And you know what? It's kind of easy for me in a certain way because I've lived a very different life. And I think you have too, Rob. That kind of adversity is baked in. And it has its strengths. It can help you stand on your own. It can help you look at a whole group of people and be like, you all are seeing another thing. And instead of feeling like, what's wrong with me? I would think, what's wrong with all of you? That kind of adversity leads to that ability to stand alone. And I think that's one of the things we want to instill in our kids. Now, guys, I'm just noticing the time. We blew through anything we were going to do for breaking the mold, which Rob, you've seen this segment. But I want to make sure there's time for Rob to really walk the walk.
Yeah. Cool. Definitely something we need to catch up on again. I think that's when we talked about this episode, I knew it was going to be maybe 2 or 3 episodes because there's so much more to cover.
We got to bring him back.
Rob, you got to come back. I got more questions for you.
Before we end it, I want to end on this. I think personally, I think about my parents, and I think about parents nowadays, and I would like to think that it was harder for my parents then. Because I see how parents are nowadays when you got your kids and they are knowing you send them to the room, they go play a video game, they have their phone, they got tablets, they got computers, they got all these distractions that keeps kids busy. And then just listening to you guys now, I'm thinking like, damn, I was a pain in the ass when I was a little kid. But what did mom and dad do? Because we didn't have that. None of that luxury was in my household growing up, So I'm like, it must have been definitely harder.
Like everything, it cuts both ways because there's also a lot more information.
Yes.
Each generation learns more things. So is it harder than it was? Yes and no.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, that's always going to be the answer.
It's just sad, it's like there's no, I guess when you grow up, I'm so glad I grew up in the era I did. Like I would have hated growing. I kind of like that there was a certain innocence that was baked into my childhood just because you could exist in your own world and you weren't connected to everybody. Like I couldn't imagine. I mean, bullying going to school is bad enough. Now you get bullied 24/7 because of social media. I mean, how hard it must be for a kid. I mean, if you got bullied as a kid, at least you knew at 3 o'clock you go home, get a cookie, and you be home and you be safe. Now kids are never safe, ever, when they get bullied because of social media. It's got to be harder to be a kid these days.
Yes. All right, fellas, man, great talk. That was a good one. I knew we could keep on going, but definitely gonna have to bring Rob back and talk about this some more. And like you said, I don't know. You want to do a quick breaking the mold? Just ask Rob a question on how he breaks the mold as a man. He can have a quick answer, and then we'll just go right into his walking the walk, just so we could break it up a little. I want to know this.
I think that's a good idea.
I want to know how Rob breaks the mold. Rob, you want to tell us how you break the mold?
So one of the breaking the mold things that I think I do that's different or non-conventional, especially for men who have daughters, is I want to say this too loud because my 9-year-old's upstairs. I don't want her to get the wrong idea. But I start talking to our oldest daughter. I start talking to her really young about sex. Right. That is something that is forbidden. That is like a no-no. Like, what kind of dad are you talking to your daughter about sex? Like, you're supposed to tell her that that she's going to get pregnant, she's going to get syphilis, the clap, AIDS, and everything. Like, you're supposed to be deterring her from doing the do, right? But I felt like if I didn't educate her and school her on boys and sex, then the streets certainly would. And some little Edgar, some little Eric, some little Dr. Dan would pull up, suave to school in a Beamer, and she's in 9th grade trying to mac on my daughter and get in her pants. So I broke the mold, man. Most people thought I was crazy. Most of my friends, my dad is like, bro, son, what are you, but I keep it real. So that's one way in which I've broken the mold.
Huge.
Yeah,
that's I think you're breaking the mold by still using the term clap. I think that's where you break the mold. You know what I mean? Kids don't know what that is. They go, oh, she gonna give you the clap. Oh, she gonna applaud afterwards? They don't know what the clap is.
But listen, I do want to say, like, Rob, I really like your style in your ability to stand alone and do it your way. And I've done a similar thing with regard to sex, not necessarily getting them ready for what to expect, but I thought it was really important, just as a dad, to not be uncomfortable about it. Like, just make it normal. Like, stop this crap.
Yeah.
It's a part of the human condition. It's a part of the human race. It's part of what everybody does. Just be normal about it. And I can see that's taking a lot of heat off them that way. So, but I really applaud you. I think it's great.
That's awesome, bro. That's
I think
a good
it's
way
smart.
I think it's smart. I never saw that one coming. So yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm rethinking it because she likes to do it.
But she'll probably do it in a safer way because you've taught her trust. That's huge. Much better.
Bingo.
Nice.
That's
a
right.
good
Her
one.
choice.
Great breaking the mold, Rob. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob.
So now we're gonna get into this segment we like to call Walking the Walk, where we like to come on here and just basically vent about something, talk about something that has bothered you in the past, that's bothering you now, something you want to get off your chest, and and do it on a judgment-free zone like Planet Fitness. Tangana. Plug. I need sponsors. But, so
no shame in this game. No shame.
With this breaking the mold, this walking the walk, I wanted to bring my boy Rob on here. So Rob, it's your chance, bro. Walk the walk, brother.
Walk the walk. So I'll say this, guys. I'm so transparent with my children, probably over transparent in the eyes of most people. My wife and I have a great relationship, so we talk about everything. So there really isn't a big thing, the elephant in the room, so to speak, that's hidden or that's on my chest. I'm also grateful that I have friends like Edgar to have conversations that we don't normally have publicly. I would just say overall and in general, the shame and the guilt around, damn it, Edgar, you had to ask the question. Now you got me getting in there. The shame and the guilt around my 2 older kids in particular, not realizing their potential at this juncture in life, as I saw it, is heavy. That's something that weighs on me. For example, my oldest, she was in a nuclear medicine technology program, right? And I won't tell her story, but long story short, she has left the program and is now back at home. And I look at myself and I look at everything that transpired in her life that would cause her to be back home. And I say, what did you do or what didn't you do that could have caused or prevented her not realizing her dream at this juncture? Same thing with my 19-year-old son, who's graduated in May, and he's really trying to figure out who he is and what he's here to do. I say, like, I look at myself and I go, Rob, this is the product of you. So there's something that you did or didn't do that caused it. And I have to remind myself constantly, and Dr. Dan, you helped me today. Listen, man, you could have done everything right, dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, but that individual will is a mofo. It was for you, it is for you, and it is for them. You cannot beat yourself up and take full responsibility for what they do and don't do as a 22-year-old and a 19-year-old adult. So I had that moment where I feel like, you know what, you did the best you can with what you knew. And then I have those moments where I feel like, you know what, Rob, you're not super dad, because if you were super dad, your kids would be perfect. I struggle with that, guys, if I'm keeping it a thou wow with you.
Let me just jump in there, and then I want you to keep going.
I just want you to know what a thou wow is. It's 1,000.
Okay.
Really? Really?
I appreciate that whatever my reputation is requires him to explain basic things.
I know, right? Like he's a translator. Oh, let me explain what he said.
Mo means more. So,
Sorry,
I'm thinking, Rob, one thing that I would like to just lend this thought to you to potentially be of help, not just to you, but to all the parents out there. You have to remember the goal can't be perfection because nobody is perfect. So you got to remember, you don't have to be the perfect parent. You got to be you. Like, if you're bringing the full you, then it's good. See, to me, it doesn't matter who you are. Your kids are going to want to know who you are, and they're going to draw their strength from who you are. So you are kind of perfect in a way. You're perfectly you. Right. Especially if you're not doing things that are problematic and you're just being you and you're doing your best, then you are doing a perfect job.
Wow. Wow.
Whew. Yeah, because I see too many parents. At least you care. You're invested in the game. Yeah. I see too many parents. They're like, they want to be their kids' friends and don't even care what they're doing with their lives. You know what I mean? It's like I see mothers and daughters dressing way too alike for this generation for me to feel too comfortable talking about we sisters. I said, no, you're not. You gave birth to that woman. What are you doing? I'll see like parents just become disengaged with their kids once they hit 18. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like that's their life. I mean, to me, I think it's a good thing that you're still invested. I mean, that means you care. I
completely agree, and we see that in spades and Rob. But Rob, I wanted to get, when I said that, something hit you.
Yeah. You said, being perfectly yourself. What hit me in my gut was, at least for me, I can speak for myself, and every parent that I talk to wants their children to do what? Be better than them and go further than they went. So that's at the root of this conversation within myself that says I didn't do enough or I'm not doing a good enough job, because they're not at this juncture in life eclipsing or taking the baton further than I believe that I did at that same age, right? And what hit me was, just as I have to be perfectly myself, they have to be perfectly themselves, or the best versions of themselves. That's the game that they are playing. They're not playing a game to appease or please daddy or be better than daddy. I'm my own person. I have my own story, my own narrative. They're writing theirs. So I have to give them the space, be the space, and just give myself a break sometimes, extend some mercy and grace to myself that they're going to be all right.
That's exactly the case. One thing that I tell parents is you have to learn to trust your kids. You got to learn to trust. They know their lives. They will figure it out. And I look at my kids and I think, what do I really want for them? And sure, I want all kinds of things. Oh, I want them to do better than me and da-da-da. And then I calm myself down and I'm like, stop it. Stop it. Let's pay attention to what do they actually want? What do they actually need right now? Ooh. And listen, if they eclipse me in happiness, then I won. Ooh. That's it.
Oh, that's deep. My mother said, I just want to get to a point where I don't pay any of your bills anymore.
And look at him now.
And I'm a success story that you wouldn't believe. That's all she wanted. She said, I just want to keep all my money. That's all I want to do. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do with your life, where you live. As long as I'm not coming out of my pocket for any of your bills, I win. And I kind of took that to heart. You know what I mean? I was like, it felt good to be independent. Now, I do have a question. Is there an age limit to how long parents should allow their children to live with them at home? Is there a number, a magic number, anyone on the panel, that you would be like, you know what, that's too old?
For the people that follow the pod, Eric is reporting live from his mother's basement. So he's
I'm doing my podcast, Mom.
I'll be up in 5 minutes, Ma.
I want my turkey pot pie.
I do think there is. Man, that's a great question. And for me, I'll be honest, it's probably longer for my daughters than it is my sons. right? So for my daughter, it's like, you can stay with us until you get engaged, or until you can buy your own condo or townhome. You can stack your paper. Daddy, I'm the man in your life. I'm going to be the man in your life to walk you down the aisle and give you over to the man who is replacing me, in a sense. For my sons, it's like, listen, son, you got about 8 more months until you gotta go, because there's too much testosterone in the building. And I can see my sons getting a little, when I'm domineering and authoritative, because it's my house, that it is like, Dad, I'm grown. I got to be home by 12 midnight. Yeah, you don't like it, then you can go. And so when there starts to be this alpha male headbutt, which I think happens with male to male, much quicker, much earlier, then you got to get yourself ready to go. So I would answer that question, until marriage for the daughters, and shortly thereafter 18 if you're not going to college for the sons. If you are 20, for me, if you are home from graduation, you graduated, you're 21, 22, you're looking for a job. Once you get that job, you got 12 months to stack your paper, put a down payment on a condo or a townhouse or apartment, but you got to go.
Interesting. I wanna talk about something that you said, Dr. Dan, because you were like, you gotta let your kids be, right? So I'm gonna ask you this question, Dr. Dan. How would you say, as a parent, as a father, would you let your kid be? I mean, I don't know if that's the right way to answer the question. Like, how do we do that? How do we just let our kids bump and just say, okay, they're gonna learn from this lesson? You know what I'm saying? How do we stop being that enforcer and be like, okay, pull back, So you won't sound like the bad guy all the time. Like, oh, Dad is just doing this. Dad is pressuring me. Do this. So yeah, I could see Rob's point of view, but then I want to ask you that, like, how do we pull back and be like, okay, let me let them bump their heads and still care for them, and or ignore them? Do I have to ignore them? Do I have to like pretend like they don't care? Like, I think, how do you do that?
Okay, so first of all, as you were talking, this was so interesting. The way I do parenting, and I'm not saying this means you're doing it wrong, but I'm just saying the way that I think about it is actually in some ways the opposite. I don't have to figure out how to let up. I have to figure out when to step in. Most of the time, I'm not stepping in. Most of the time, I'm just sitting there listening. I'm just like, tell me who you are. I'm like a kid who sits down in a movie theater and looks up at the screen. I'm just like, who are you? And I'm listening and listening and listening, and I'm supporting. And then if I hear they need help, I'll say, do you want me to say something about that? I think I can help you with that. Yeah. And that's what I meant by trusting your kids. Yeah. Trust them by listening to them. So your question is a great one, Edgar, because I think it's incredibly instructive. And look, I can't say I'm doing it right necessarily, but I'm doing it with the conviction that I have. I am being perfectly me. This is the father that I choose to be. Right. Well, and the father that I choose to be is, I'm going to trust them, I'm going to listen, and I will step in when I see that they need it. And sometimes I'll do it even forcefully, whether they like it or not, because I'm like, okay, listen, I've let you have your way a lot of the time, and I don't mean let them have their way like they get everything they want. I mean, they get to be who they are. And then sometimes I'm like, listen, I got to step in here. Here's a good example. During the pandemic, my kids didn't get to, we moved to, a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm from originally. We moved back. And then the pandemic hit like 7 months later. Well, my kids weren't having play dates and stuff. And they were doing fine. They were adapting to things. But I saw they're not being outgoing enough to go ahead and get their friends. And I was looking, and I was like, I'm letting you be. I'm letting you be. I'm letting you be. And I was totally fine with it. But eventually I was like, girls, you got to make more of an effort. You're waiting for people to come to you. Life doesn't come to you. So it's not that I don't give lessons. It's that I wait. If I'm listening really carefully, I know when to step in. That's the best way to say it.
Okay. I'll say this. I'm a father. I have a 27-year-old, so I'm probably like the oldest dad here. But I was a kid who had a kid, You know, I had my son when I was 18, so I was just a kid myself. I was in that mentality like you were, Rob, when you were at that age. You know, so and I'm pretty sure a lot of fathers could relate to what I'm about to say. But I feel like with my son now, even now, the relationship I have with my son now, we have our ups and downs. We don't see eye to eye. We bump heads a lot. You know, father and son bump heads, bump heads, bump heads. And I feel like the day that I'm cool with him and I treat him like, yo, cool, like, what's up, bro? You know, and I'm like, yeah, you know, and I'm listening to him and I'm just entertaining him, even though he's telling me things that are bothering me. And I want to be like, you shouldn't be doing this. You got to be doing this. And I want to correct him because that's what you want to do because you don't want them to make the mistakes. But I feel as fathers, we mess that up.
Yeah.
Because now what happens with him is if I'm being real cool with him, everything is nice. But the minute I sound like a dad, then I shut him down. Then he shuts down completely in a heartbeat. Now I'm not cool. Now he doesn't want to listen to nothing I say because now I'm dad. Before I was the friend, now I'm the father. And that's the problem that I have with him till this day, till this very day. You know what I mean? It's cool, but then boom, I'll shut him down. And it shuts down. So it's really
it's tough. I mean, let me just say this out of empathy for the two of you and for all the fathers out there. It's very tough to strike the balance. I don't mean to suggest that the way I'm doing it is so easy all the time. Like I don't want anybody thinking that. But I do feel very clear on my choices, and I think part of what you're saying, Edgar, is that, and this is part of what's hard for a lot of people as parents, they do not have a definitive stance on where they're going to stand on something, and they're just trying to adapt and adjust, and they're getting hit from all angles. Oh my God, now this is happening. Now I got to do this, and it's hard. Parenting is incredibly hard to do.
Well,
I was going to say to do right.
Especially, I think you have to consider the age you become a parent. I mean, I can't. It has to be harder for anyone between the ages of 18 to 21 compared to someone between the ages of 25 to 30. Just because you're more established as a person and as an individual, that's just the way life is. I mean, like you said, Edgar, a kid having a kid. I mean, you were barely an adult yourself, and yet now you were called upon to raise a future adult. I mean, the challenges that presents, you know, it's got to be tough. So I know I have family members. They became fathers at 18, and they had kids when they got older, and their light years different than when they were with the first than with the last. Just with experience and just learning who they are and through their experiences of being a father. So I think you always have to take into account how young you are when you become a parent, and that has to have an impact on your ability to be an effective parent, because in effect, you're still growing. You're still becoming an adult yourself.
I think that's completely true. The one thing I'll add to piggyback on that is that I want the viewers out there to know, and you guys to know, it's never too late to make a new adjustment. It's never too late. So let's say you're having that struggle, Edgar. It's not too late. You're not stuck in that dynamic. What I think you need is the right information to break you out to the right, possibility. To me, a great suggestion is if you want to find out why you're having a struggle with somebody, ask them. I know it sounds silly, but ask them and actually listen. Just be like, what happens? How would you want me to be? That doesn't mean you're just going to go ahead and do it the way they tell you to do it, but at least you then have the information.
That's money.
I mean, have you ever asked them, Edgar? Have you ever just just looked your boy in the face and said, what do you want from me?
What
do you want me to be as a dad? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, or why,
how do you want me to be?
Yeah, why do I bother you like this? Come on, tell me.
You know what? No, I really haven't. Not eye to eye like that, face to face. And we've had moments, where we it's I don't know, man. It's so weird because we could go a streak of having a great, father and son relationship, but like I said, he'll do something that like will get me upset, and I'll say something, and then boom, that shuts everything right back down. So I haven't asked him the question, but actually, you know what, Eric, I am. I'm actually.
Well, Dr. Dan's the one that suggested it.
No, I'm gonna be in New York next month, and definitely I'll sit down and have that conversation with him. I mean, I remember my mom told me when I became a father at the age of 18, my mom, I would never forget these words, and her Latina voice, she was like, what you did to me, you're gonna suffer worse with that one. That's what she told me. At 18, my mom told me that, and dude, it's stuck. I only have one son, and trust me, I don't want to have no more. I'm done. But it's crazy, man. Parenting nowadays is so different. I mean, every father
Could
has
you
a
see
different
yourself being a
point of view.
father again? I mean, you're still young.
I think I really don't want to, but part of me wonders, just like you, how would it be? How would I be now as a father now? As if I got that chance now, what father would I be? Knowing what I know now, knowing the differences and everything else, would I be a better father? Would I be, would it be easier? Would I be different? So, because I was just a kid. I was just a kid, So
But
my son really grew up like my little brother. If you really think about it, we were like, young. So,
right. But let me
oh,
throw out something that could be helpful to you, Edgar, and it could help a lot of people out there. So my dad, who adopted me, I just think of him as dad. It took a long time for him to really feel like a full dad, and I would say that we really hit our stride together when I was probably 24. I was already 24 years old. He continues to make adjustments, and I see it, and I appreciate that he does that, and it heals things that hurt from a long time ago. He didn't teach me how to tie a tie. But now I've got this true father figure who admires me in certain ways, and it never gets old. It doesn't. Once you're a parent, you're their parent for the rest of your life, and you can always make a difference. I don't care if you're 90 years old. You can listen to them and hear them, and it can erase everything that went not good if you listen.
I could be 100% honest, or 1,000. How you say it, Rob? Thought or whatever.
Bow wow.
Wow. That
You're gonna start a trend with that
never
one.
been answered, because I'm done. I'm done. I don't know. Parenting is so hard, man. I mean, just listening to your point of view, and then your point of view, Rob, and just listening to how we are all different, and we could keep on talking about this for another hour or 2 more hours, and there's so many things that we have not covered. But I did learn a lot just from listening to you, Dr. Dan, and I think you and I, Rob, have had this conversation on how we need to like step back sometimes and be like, okay, let me stop being the dad and let me listen. And one thing that I've learned from this podcast is to listen. So I need to like either listen and stop trying to fix his problems. Stop trying to tell him what to do and what not to do, because maybe he'll bump his head on his own. Maybe not having me badge him so much, like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Because I could see how I could sound like a broken record when it comes to that. Because I'm on him, because I want him to be better, So thank you for your words today, because that just teaches me that, I still got hope. And maybe, now I just got to change that relationship and maybe start listening to him a little bit more. And maybe that'll make it better for the both of us,
Yeah, I wanted to say something about something I observed in you, Rob, and your way of doing things that I really admire, and I just want to highlight it. I share this with you. Like, I'm always trying to be better and better and better and better. But what I think we can do is, if we don't bring that demand to our kids where they have to get better and better and better, like if they get happier and happier, yes, that's good. But I do want to give you some credit where credit is due, that when you have a goal as a parent to do better and better, that's actually a good thing, as long as it doesn't go off the rails and make us do things that don't make us better, But the consistent quest to be a better and better parent, like, I want to be a great parent to my 12 and 8-year-old. But when they're 24 and 20, I want to be even better than I am now, or at least great for that age. I just want to be great for each age. You gotta flow with your kids.
I think the older you get, the better it is. It's like that saying, how I would see my mom and how she was with my nephews and my nieces and my son, and I'm like, you were never like this with us. You notice your grandparents are always
they didn't pay for you, bro.
Parents, Mom said no, I will go to grandma. Grandma would say yeah, and it's crazy. And I guess everything keeps moving forward. It keeps paying itself. So you were a little kid, and then now you're gonna be the father, and then you see life differently.
The grandparents, it skips a generation. They're more relaxed. They're more able to just let the kid be, let them be who they are, and sit down in the movie theater and look up and be like, "Who are you?" If we can do that as a parent, that's a big part of the job.
Mm-hmm. I have a question. I have one question I want to ask Rob. First of all, Rob, I want to tell you before we get to the end of the show, I loved having you on, man. I like the way you carry yourself. I like the message you're putting out there, and I hope you come back. I really do. I'm curious. Will your children, the older children, the two old ones, are you going to have them watch this podcast? And if they do, how do you think they will react? What kind of conversation you think it will spark?
So yes, first question is yes, absolutely. I think the first thing my daughter would say is, "Don't be putting my business out there, Dad." Don't be putting my business out there, Dad. I was like, I didn't get into specifics and I didn't say names, even though you're all Googleable. So there's that. I think my kids would ultimately say, "That's my dad. Like, that's who he is. That's who he is being." Couple things I want to make sure I get across, right? We have to be mindful that we are evolving beings. So there's the evolution of us as individuals. There's the evolution of our children. And so to Dr. Dan's point, there's always adjustments, ebbs and flows, or audibles, as we like to call them in the sport of football. You have to call audibles for the season and don't have multiple kids. We have 4, 2 boys, 2 girls, different ages, different people. So we have to call audibles multiple times exponentially, right, for each kid as they ebb and flow through life. The other thing is this. We talk about trust. Dr. Dan talks about trust and being open. There's an occurring world for us. There's the world as I see it, right? There's my experiences of the world, things that happen to me. And then there's what I make those happenings mean, how I internalize them, my emotional attachment to them. And those same dynamics are true for my kids. So part of trust and being open is allowing my kids to share with me authentically, without fear of judgment, how the world occurs for them. We look at their behaviors and we say, "What the F were you thinking?" Well, if you get in there with them and try to get the world as it occurs for them, you begin to understand why they make some of the decisions that they make that don't make any sense to our occurring world and our cognitive process, right? And so there's a lot of dynamics that are going on. My willingness to get in there with my kids is what's making the difference right now with the older ones. And like I said, they'll find a way. Lastly is this, for any parent, any father, particularly out there who is estranged from their kids, not talking to their kids. Thank you, my brother Edgar. I wasn't talking to my daughter. I didn't talk to my daughter in a month and a half, my oldest one, until Edgar and I went on a hike 2 weeks ago. And he told me about his son and where he was with his son and how he felt about his son. And still in that conversation, he advised me to go reconcile with my daughter, who was turning 22 right before her birthday. On her birthday, as a matter of fact, we went on a hike that morning. I was late. Edgar's in front of my house. He and another one of our brothers in arms. I was in the house reconciling with my daughter before I went on a hike with Edgar and our brother Andrew. And so it's never too late, man. As long as you have breath in your lungs. Here's a model for reconciliation that I use. I'm sorry for X, Y, and Z. Here's the impact on me. It was killing me. I don't like the strain that is between us. I don't like the elephant in the room. What was the impact on you? I listened. I hugged her. We had a moment. We cried. All right. And then we recreated what we wanted to see moving forward. We wanted to experience moving forward, what we expected out of one another moving forward. And that becomes a new agreement. So, guys, I want to give that to all the listeners listening. We're not perfect. We are perfectly ourselves, but this thing called parenting is there's no book, no manual. You can check all the boxes and just nail it in every area all the time.
Yeah. But I want you guys to know that conversations like this is what help us be better men as parents. You share your experience, I share mine. That's why I love the walks. And I tell people real quick, well, last week we talked about building a scenario, finding a place where you could talk to people. Not every place that you go to, you'll be able to vent out and share something. And those walks to me mean everything. Every Saturday morning, no matter how tired I am, I get up in the morning and we walk and we talk. And yo, dude, it's the best workout. So thank you, brother, for being here. Thank you for sharing that with us. Definitely gonna bring you back so we could talk some more about this. And everybody,
or just to talk about other stuff, man. I'd love to hear your opinion on a bunch of other things if you're interested.
Definitely, bro, for
I'm
sure.
in.
And to everyone listening, man, thank you so much, man. Remember, if you got any questions, any breaking the molds, any walking the walk, man, just comment down below, write something, share this video with a friend, man. All men out there need to see this, and all men need to be aware of the fact that we need to start listening to each other more. We need to help out each other. That's where it starts the most. As for men, at least, we need to start listening a lot more. And thank you, Dr. Dan, for your words today. Actually helped me a lot. I'm actually looking forward to going to New York next month and having that conversation with my son. So thank you as well, Eric. So brothers, man, thank you for being here. We're going to wrap it up real quick and let Dr. Dan take us out like he does every week, yo.
All right. So I do want to say again, thanks, Rob. It was a pleasure. I look forward to having you back, and we'll talk more. All right, guys, if you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and we will get back to you personally.
Yeah. Brothers in arms.
Brothers in arms.
Peace.